Welcome to the Qasim Rashid Show, a civil rights lawyer here to expose all forms of injustice with a sprinkling of dad jokes in between. Here's your host, Qasim Rashid.
Good morning and peace be upon you. It's beautiful Sunday or wherever you're tuning in from. My name is Qasim Rashid and this is the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. If you're listening on Substack, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let's keep the conversation going. My friends, it's been a wild couple of weeks since the election. A lot is already changing very, very quickly. And I want to cover three main things on today's show. One, I want to cover the anti-Muslim hate I'm getting, not from MAGAs, because that's kind of ongoing, but from the left, from Democrats. And we need to talk about this because this type of internal fighting is exactly what MAGAs want, and we need to crush it. Two, I want to bring on my good friend, Marie Newman, former congresswoman from here in Illinois, to talk about just what went wrong and what we need to do moving forward, including, does that mean a major shift in party leadership? And then finally, I want to talk about these last 2 months of Joe Biden's presidency. There is not much he can do as a lame duck president. However, there are significant things he can do through executive orders that can slow MAGA fascism in America. And I know what you're thinking. Well, if he does an executive order, then won't Trump just repeal it the very first day in office? Probably. But that doesn't mean he shouldn't do them anyway. And I'll explain why. First, I want to dive into this phenomenon of post-election anti-Muslim hate from the left. It's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but it's a necessary one because we know that anti-Muslim hate from the right is here, it's rising, it will likely spike to record levels once Trump takes office and enacts, Muslim ban 2.0. But right now, post-election, I'm seeing a sense of rising anti-Muslim sentiment among Democrats on the claim that Harris lost due to the American Muslim vote. And this is dangerous for a number of reasons, and we need to counter this hate immediately. The morning after the election, I wrote that many people are hurting, many are angry, and there's no rush to respond. And I say both to those hurting and to those looking to point fingers. Already this morning, I've received notes telling me to F off, to enjoy the camps, or hope you like being deported, or hope you like Palestinians being flattened. And to be sure, these aren't from MAGAs, but from folks on the left. I wrote that the day after the election. And since then, these attacks have unfortunately increased on the left. I've received texts from Muslim and Arab friends expressing fear, not just of the inevitable and fascist bans on Muslims, but of the bigotry they're experiencing right now. I've received many thoughtful responses, to be sure, from my white Christian friends expressing love and compassion and solidarity, and from my Black Christian friends expressing love and compassion and solidarity, and my Jewish friends. Let's be clear about that. But my white Christian friends in particular are asking me to be safe because of the rhetoric they're hearing in their circles. And so to the allies out there, I'm grateful. But I want to candidly lay this bare hate because we need to understand what's happening. First of all, let me address this myth that Muslims are why Harris lost. It's nonsense. In a word, it's nonsense. It's magically that Muslims are not a large enough demographic to get a speaking spot at the DNC, but apparently we're so large that we single-handedly flipped the election. You guys, we're less than 1% of the voting population. Less than 1%. Okay? And even in that less than 1%, we overwhelmingly voted for Harris. I was looking at an AP Fox News exit poll and said that in 2020, something like 64% of Muslims voted for Biden and 35% voted for Trump. In 2024, 63% voted for Harris and 32% voted for Trump. It's a statistic anomaly. It's negligible. The number of Muslims who voted for Biden also voted for Harris. And that's just a fact. And by the way, this is something to consider when you think about the fact that Democratic presidents have been bombing Muslim majority countries since Obama, actually since Clinton. And there's a really painful report that came out called Unworthy Victims that documents that since 1990 or 91, I think, and it goes until 2012 or 2013. So it doesn't even include the last decade. But in that 25-year span or so, it documents about 4 million Muslim civilians killed by Western bombing. And so if anybody should be upset, it's the American Muslim community. And still, we're coming out and voting strong, hoping for a better tomorrow. And those American Muslims who are sick and tired of that and voted third party or stayed home, I'm not mad at them, only because they're exercising their constitutional right. They are exercising their constitutional right, and they're saying, you're bombing my home country, you're bombing the country where my ancestors are. I can't in good conscience vote for that. You can't knock them for that. That, to me, is them exercising their civic responsibility. And in addition to that, the facts are that the American Muslim vote is not what resulted in the loss of Kamala Harris. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the show, but we can see where the Democratic Party lost its base. When they refused to invest in social media, knowing full well that young people, more than half of them, get their news from social media. And we see a 30-point shift to the right from Biden to Trump. 30-point shift of people aged 18 to 29. Folks want to say, well, it was, Jill Stein. No, Jill Stein didn't do anything. Jill Stein won between 0.4 and 0.9% of the vote in the 38 states in which her name appeared. The highest was in New Jersey, the deep blue state of New Jersey, 0.9%. And in every single state where Harris lost, Stein received fewer votes than the margin of difference. Right? In Pennsylvania, she lost by about 40,000 votes. Stein received about 30,000. Harris lost by 80 in Michigan. Stein received about half that. In Wisconsin, Harris lost by 30,000 votes. Stein received about 12,000. In fact, RFK and libertarian candidates got more votes than Stein as well. And when we look at the breakdown by religion, again, we see more than 60% of Muslims voting for Harris and Tim Walz. And this is just a fact, guys. So, and it's a fact, by the way, attested to by Governor Tim Walz when he was asked about the uncommitted movement. He praised them as actively engaged and people that should be listened to. And so, attacking American Muslims for the crime of being civically engaged is not how we're going to strengthen our democracy. It's how we undermine our unity. And unity for the sake of justice is how we need to move forward right now. As I implored in my election breakdown, today the Democratic Party has two very distinct paths ahead of it. It can either blame everyone else as racist, embrace war criminals like Dick Cheney, and hold loaded primaries, thereby ensuring a repeat of this election's failures in the future, or the Democratic Party can look inwardly and actually listen to its base and future. Young voters, Black voters, Asian voters, Muslim voters, Latino voters, anti-Zionist Jewish voters, and ensure success on the local, state, and federal level for a generation or more. This will always hold true. If we intend to truly become a Big Ten party that listens to its base, this is what we need to do. So those quick to attack American Muslims for peacefully exercising their constitutional right to dissent should reflect on how they differentiate from the MAGA Republicans who demand absolute loyalty in all matters. The election's over. The results are what they are. And now we have a choice before us. Either continue to attack a historically marginalized community that will continue to suffer ongoing marginalization, or reflect what we could have done better as a party and build that better party and build that better country going forward. I'm choosing the latter. I know most of you are as well. And I need you guys to be allies in this space. And finally, and I'll close with this before we go to break and bring on Marie Newman. Allyship is not just about recognizing hate. It's also an actively calling out hate by being anti-hate, anti-racist, anti-fascist, anti-Islamophobic. And by investing in those doing the work, by investing your resources in those standing on the front lines. Many of us have done this for years. Many of you are doing it now. This moment calls to redouble our efforts. Continue to build that coalition. Look at the people doing the work. If you're listening to this and enjoying the advocacy and us being on the front lines, hit that subscribe button and invest your time and resources. The next 4 years are going to be unimaginably difficult, but we can and will get through it together if we stand together. I thank each of you for trusting in me and having the wherewithal to want to be engaged, to not tap out and say, okay, I'm done. We'll talk about this later in the show, but take your time off, relax, let your mind recover, let your body, your soul recover, let your body heal. But when it's time to get back in the ring, come back in the ring full speed, and let's continue that work. My commitment is going to be to reciprocate your trust with consistent and thoughtful and fact-based analysis and insights on the key human rights issues and civil rights issues that impact us all. And I'm grateful to each of you for being with me on this journey. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View. When we come back from break, We will welcome former Congresswoman Marie Newman to analyze what happened and where we go from here. Don't go away. We'll be right back in a few minutes. Welcome back. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. As we navigate this post-election reality, I'm always privileged to speak with the thought leaders in the space who led by example and just faced an onslaught of the same crap that resulted in our really nasty loss on election night. I'm grateful to invite back to the show an old friend, former Congresswoman Marie Newman. Marie, as you have followed her career, may know, ousted an anti-choice Democrat from Congress and was one of the most fierce champions for progressive values, economic justice, women's rights, racial justice, LGBTQ justice. And unfortunately, she faced the same dark money provocateurs that resulted in Trump's win. And I'm excited to have her back to talk about the election, the fallout, and where we go from here. Marie, thanks for being with us today.
Good morning, and thank you. So good to see you.
You know, it's one. Thank you. It's one of those things where the more I think about it, the more upset I get because one, the election is turning out to be a lot closer than what it seemed to be on election night, and it kind of speaks to just some of the tactical errors, not even the strategic, like broader errors, but even some of the tactical errors of not paying attention closely. If you could pick, the 2 or 3 things that you wish you would have seen done differently in this campaign, what do you pinpoint that as?
So I have a little more broad view now that I've had a few days, right? Just like you. But I will tell you, and this is not the most popular view, is that there was no way to win. We were in a change election. Internationally, people are moving to the right and changing out incumbents. So our VP Harris could have been a combination of Dalai Lama, Gandhi, Jesus Christ, Mohammed, and like roll any other big person in there, and she would not. Yeah, she would not have won, right? It just was going to be a change election period. So let's start there. Secondly, I will tell you, I think the Harris campaign, the staff, VP Harris, all Democrats, they all worked hard. In fact, I have no criticisms. What happened is that the electorate changed dramatically. First of all, it was going to be a change election. Secondly, Republican, Democrat, Independent has literally no meaning left, and for 3 reasons, and they're 3 numbers. So when in the exit polling, and now it's showing, I'm sure it'll show up in the Catalyst and the Pew reports once we get to the election certified in February. 3 numbers are really critical and important to understand. Only 22% of Trump voters, that is, identify as a Republican. Separately and equally importantly, in the world recently, and this is just a poll done in the last 4 weeks, is that only 32% of Americans identify as Democrats and 34% as Republicans. So what do those 3 numbers tell us? That party does not matter, and we are contextualists, meaning what is right in front of us when we're voting, and the price of eggs and gas and all of those things, that's what they were worried about. And everything else be damned. I mean, quite literally, for better or worse. And also what more has happened so much more than we have ever anticipated before is that people are very busy because they're working 3 jobs. And so they don't have time to look into policy and all this other nonsense. So my big learning is that the electorate is no longer right, left, center. In fact, I don't think that was really ever the case, but solve these 2 important issues for me. And you know what? Don't talk like a goddamn robot. Don't talk like a robot. Say, prices are high, I'm going to fix them, and this is the $5 word I'm going to use to fix them, period. So Whether that requires a rebrand, reinvention, a new movement in the party, or possibly a third party, I will leave it to those that will discern that with all of the numbers. But I will tell you, this is a full rehaul, folks.
Yeah, it's a full reset. I still have hope in what the future brings, because I think we're seeing the end result of a massive wave of disinformation that I think Democrats just didn't do an effective enough job of responding to. I mean, the right has their Daily Wire, their Turning Point USA, their Prager University, their Joe Rogans. We've really got nothing that combats that on the same level. And when you look at the investment that the right made on young people, this data point shocked me, that there was a 30-point shift to the right from 18 to 29-year-olds, a 30-point shift from 2020 to now. That doesn't happen accidentally. That doesn't happen without a concerted effort. And when you look at the investment that the right made on social media, for example, knowing full well that more than half of young people get their news from social media instead of legacy media or mainstream media, and you compare that. I read one report that showed that on TikTok, for example, right-leaning content versus left-leaning content had a 500 to 1 impression rate. When you're down 500 to 1 on a ratio
Yes.
of content, you're just not going to overcome that. In your circles, are you seeing these folks kind of begin to realize that we're not reaching young people because we're not making the investments? Are you seeing conversations about making more
Yeah.
investments in the space? And if not, how do we get that point across?
Well, that's just it, right? Is that Gen Z did not, just to put it very generically, Gen Z did not come out. And if they did, they went to Trump, just period. Like, let's all be honest about that. And I was shocked at the number of young people that I talked to and said, you know what, we just need change, and I'm going to vote for this guy. And you could talk about, all of the satanic things that Trump does, and they would not care. They're like, no, I need housing to be cheaper, period. And that is true. So that is on us to fix that, right? We do have to, but yeah, that was my general take, is that Gen Z is fed up listening and getting no action.
And one of the data points that Stephen Semler, as a research scientist, brought up that I think, again, I think Joe Biden didn't effectively enough address, and Kamala Harris, is poverty. And this data point kind of shocked me, went up 67% during the Biden administration. And so when you're seeing a poverty rate increase 67%, and you have you have these really promising proposals from Harris saying $6,000 child tax credit, $25,000 first-time home buyer credit, $50,000 small business. I think the question, and I would bring that up to folks, and the question after that was, okay, but I'm poor now, or I'm struggling now. Why aren't Biden and Harris doing this right now? And I don't think that the campaign had a very good answer to that. How do Democrats better get that message across, that the economy does better under Democrats, not by accident, but because we're making those meaningful investments, when that message isn't getting across?
For better or worse, Qasim, I said this on WGN on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Trump stumbled into something that really works with people. So remember, people are working 3 jobs. They're very busy. They feel like the Democrats are out of touch. So when we start talking about, we're going to have a purple pink pony economy, or an opportunity economy, or whatever it is, they're like, well, what the hell does that mean? You know what he said? And for better or worse, is he said, eggs and gas are too high. Can't afford a house. I will fix it. And here's the $4 word I'm going to fix it with. Now, tariffs is not the answer. But people were like, oh, he is going to fix it. Oh, and he has a thing. And I don't understand that thing, but he's got a thing. So my I guess my plea to the party leadership is, again, start talking in $5 words and saying that you will fix it. People do not have time to process. We are going to attempt, we are going to work out and collaborate and blah, 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 just say, I can fix it, period.
Yeah. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. The other point somebody brought up to me was, Democrats keep coming off as elitist, as mocking Trump supporters as dumb or stupid, and whatever the case may be. If that's all they hear, then why would they want to listen to anything else that you have to say as well? Donald Trump speaks 17 words, and they may be asinine words, but they understand all 17 of those words, and that's all
Right.
that's all they need at that point as well. So Marie, where does the party go from here? Where does the left go from here? Because as I'm seeing, it looks like we've lost the House, the Senate, and the White House. The next 2 years are going to be extremely difficult. Project 2025 is now basically national policy. Where do we go from here? What should we be doing? How do we mitigate harm? Kind of an open-ended question, but what do you see as the most useful or effective use of our next 2 years here?
I see that we need to have a long, hard look. And I'm sure the party leaders would like it to be that long, hard look is, well, let's do some repositioning, rebranding. But this is like we're starting from scratch, right, Qasim? You've heard the speech from me before, is that when we go through great turmoil, and we've been through this before, is that after World War II, we started from scratch with manufacturing, and it was a huge boom. We did a lot of great creative and innovative things. Right after polio struck our country and internationally, we figured in that time period, in the time period in which we were developing that, we worked at lightning speed like we did with COVID, and we got it to a better place pretty quickly, like within a 10-year period, which was phenomenal for a medicine at that time. So when we see a problem and we start from scratch, we're kind of always at our best. So what I'm encouraging is that you build it from scratch based on not just qualitative and quantitative data, but focus groups, because soft soundings tell you everything. And I'll tell you, having been in market research for a long time, is that those verbatims that come out of those focus group meetings are where the magic is. And then you validate it with primary and secondary research, right? So let's start from scratch. Let's build it up. And if that means, I don't know, a new party emerges, or we completely rehaul the Democratic Party, that's fine. I'm open to everything, just because I'm an open-minded person. But get started now and build it from scratch.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't know what the answer at the end unit looks like, and I think we need to be open to different alternatives. I think one of my frustrations is we went through this in 2016. We saw the way Trump functioned, and we saw the way we ran our campaign in 2016. We got out messaged, we got out focused on media. Even though we had double the spending as Trump, we still lost that election. And now, a decade later, it's like the really terrible sequel that nobody asked for. And it's the exact same scenario again. We got out messaged, we had 3-to-1 spending on Trump. But and this will probably get me in trouble with the party, but a lot of the same people that lost 2016 lost 2024, and there's zero accountability. I mean, there's no one stepping down from the DNC chair. Senate leader for Democrats is still going to be Schumer. Leader for Republican for House is still going to be Jeffries. How do we bring about any kind of transformational change when the leadership that got us into this mess repeatedly is still sitting there and not budging, not moving at all?
Well, what that tells me, and I do know that there's some work being done around this, and I've been invited to be in these conversations, is that, if you don't change, you in business, when you don't grow, you grow smaller, right?
Right.
And so if they are unwilling to grow and understand this electorate, then perhaps it's time for the Democratic Party to grow smaller and another group grows bigger. And so they either have to decide, hey, we're going to work with these people that are dissatisfied, or we're not. And if they don't, then what I always say is underestimate at your peril.
And I think that's really where the crux is. And if you're just tuning in, we're speaking with former Congresswoman Marie Newman here in Illinois about just the campaign fallout and kind of where we go from here. But I think that's where the struggle is, Marie, because you're right. The party, if it doesn't change, it's going to shrink. But the power brokers are still the power brokers. And you know this better than anyone else, because you ran a phenomenal campaign. Very first time you barely lost. You ran another phenomenal campaign, you won. And then the powers that be said, oh, no, she's a disruptor. She's not going to follow the party line. She's not going to vote on economic issues that don't that hurt working families. She's going to vote against corporate money, vote against a foreign policy that bombs Palestinians. And they ganged up on you and pushed you out, which was horrifying for all of us to see. And so maybe this is an unfair question to ask, but where's the glimmer of hope when somebody who's already in Congress, who's taken her punches, survived them, got into Congress, effectuated change, and then had just an onslaught of attacks that no person short of a multi-billionaire could overcome. If that's what we're struggling with, what can ordinary folks, I guess that's the answer. That's the question I'm really asking. What ordinary folks be doing right now who may not have, what you've built, and you've built it, I mean, no pun intended, from scratch. And you did a phenomenal job of it. And even then, you were not knocked down, and you're still fighting. How can what lessons can we take from that? What should we be doing right now?
I think you have to share that with party leaders. So the DCCC chair, so DCCCC chair is Susan Del Bene. She needs to hear it. She needs to hear we need to rebuild from scratch. We need to not talk like robots, and we need to understand working families. And you need to do it 3 ways: with qualitative, quantitative, and focus groups, period. You need to just have the same message repeated over and over again to leadership, like Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, who's second in command. And then in the Senate, for me, if Senator Schumer, who has done some good things in his career, is unwilling to sit down, I think you need to make it clear to the DSCC, which is the Senate version of the D-TRIP, that look, we don't think we're super confident with Senator Schumer anymore. But communicate that, look, it's not, this was going to be a change election. We all recognize that. Kind of, we're not denigrating VP Harris, her team, or any of the Democrats. We were going to have change anyway. But are we ready for 2028? No, right now it doesn't look good. But you have an opportunity, and if you contact the DNC chair, which is Jamie Harrison, and he'll likely step down, the DCCC and the DSCC, and say, I want change in leadership, and I want change in strategy, period, and simplify everything and get rid of all the consultants.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
They're running campaigns as if it's 2008, and it's
Oh
extremely
my God,
frustrating.
yeah, it's like watching this incredible athlete sprint to the finish line, and the person that is competing against that great athlete is this older man with a walker. I mean, that's so crude, but it's like it's in my head.
True. Yeah, it's true, and that's and they think that because it worked 40 years ago or 20 years ago, it's going to work now. The obsession with holding concerts instead of investing in social media and young people. This obsession with getting celebrity endorsements instead of meeting people where they are. I was reading about, for example, Colin Allred's race, where he only visited like 50 of the 200 and some districts in Texas and completely blocked out rural voters. Well, you're not going to get rural votes if you don't spend time there. And it's asinine to me that we're still having this conversation. I got in trouble.
You just tipped on one thing, if I may, really fast.
Yeah, please.
We have got to get to rural areas. This whole, horse hockey that we don't go to rural areas is absolute horse crap. So yes, we need to get to it. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. I mean, we used to be the party of rural Americans, and now you drive through rural America, and you'd be lucky to find a Democrat flag of any sort, Democrat candidate. And I got in trouble for saying this a couple of weeks ago, well, not a couple of weeks ago, right after the election, that I think the number one person to put on blast, the one responsible, is Joe Biden. If Joe Biden has stepped down when he was supposed to, when he promised he would, when he ran for office in 2020, and announced in February, March of 2023, hey, we've had a great term so far. We had a very successful midterms. We've passed some phenomenal legislation. I promised to be a transition candidate to secure democracy. I've done that. We've got an amazing bench of young and up-and-coming Democrats that deserve your attention. I'm going to step back, and I'm going to let them duke it out to see who the Democratic nominee is for 2024. I firmly believe that would have been the type of enthusiasm boost that we needed. That would have been the way to rally Democratic voters and let them have a voice. And maybe Harris still would have been the nominee. And this is not a knock on her at all. Because she ran a strong campaign given what she had given to her. But I think, kind of to what you were saying earlier, it became impossible for her to win when you're already a Black Indian woman. So you've got 3 strikes against you in this country, And then you're
Yeah.
told you have 100 days to meet 330 million people and convince them to vote for you. It's asinine. It's insane. I put the burden on Biden. Where are you? Am I crazy, or you think I have a point?
I don't think you're crazy. I think it would have been we would have been in a stronger situation had Biden been not ran for reelection in 22 and was clear about that and allowed for a primary. But
Yes.
I guess we can't operate in woulda, shoulda, coulda, or in the rearview mirror, because that temptation, then we absorb that energy into that activity instead of just moving forward. So I guess
Sure.
I kind of don't care.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well,
That's fair.
like I just don't care. It might have been Biden's fault, might not been. We were going to have a change election no matter what. Now, there was only a slim chance we could win even again with if we had rolled Gandhi, Muhammad, Jesus,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everybody into one, and they were a superstar, right?
Yeah.
Um so for me, we might have had I guess the net is that we might have had a better chance had Joe not run for reelection, but who
I think
knows? And
I think so. I think that's a really valid point, because you're right. We can't play Monday morning quarterback. My frustration though is we did this in 2016, and it's the repeat of it that's driving me nuts as
yeah,
well. That we gotta learn from these mistakes, and we gotta stop doing this nonsense. So if you're just tuning in, we're speaking with former Congressman Marie Newman about the election and kind of where we go from here. We've got about 6-7 minutes left, Maureen. I want to shift
yeah,
gears. I know you're working on some projects, some that you can share, and some that, if everyone is listening, you should be subscribing to Marie's Substack as well, to launch kind of her new initiatives. But what are you working on? I know you're always busy in this space trying to protect democracy. I've attended a few
yeah.
fundraisers with you as well. But what are you working on right now that you can share?
So I'm being very selective in how I move forward, right? I'm only supporting candidates that will support a working families platform fully and robustly. Um, I am supporting, there's some new initiatives and conversations going around rebrand of progressives. And when I say that, it's really more about working families. And so been doing a little bit of work. I sit on a few boards, but the things that are kind of tangible in my life right now is I'm trying to provide commentary and insight in a different way for Democrats. And the way I'm doing that is, so, I'll do a commentary or a guest spot on a TV or a radio spot. I'm a co-host on WCPT radio on Sunday mornings, talking about these things. I have a book coming out in April called Made from Scratch. And so you'll see that on Amazon right around April 15th. Be doing a book tour around that. I have a second book coming out later next year that is actually a fiction novel, my first work
Oh,
of
wow.
fiction, which will be wild and exciting.
Amazing.
But back to this, like, how do I rebuild? I have a workbook series that's coming out actually that's related to my main book, Made from Scratch, and it's called the Made from Scratch series. And it allows people to help plan if they want to start a new social movement, if they want to build a new small business, if they want to, get into politics, if they have challenges with their families and mental health. So all that stuff is coming out early next year. But I would love it if folks subscribe to me on Substack, and I'm also on Blue Sky now. So I'm weaning myself off Twitter. Yay!
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Amazing. And if you're listening to this on Substack, hit subscribe and look for the links to subscribe to Marie
Yeah.
as well. Look, you guys know I love bringing leaders onto the show who have been doing the work and are continuing to do the work. And I want to emphasize, it's not just about finding the people doing the work, it's about supporting them as well. So support Marie, buy her book, subscribe to her stuff, and promote her content, because we're not going to change the narrative by sitting silent and sitting idle. And I think that's one of the key takeaways of this, is that use your power, use your ability to bring about that kind of meaningful change. Maria, we're down to our last, I think, 3 minutes here. And I think I kind of want to just ask more of a philosophical, esoteric question, especially at a time like right now. We see attacks on women's reproductive health. We see policy about deporting immigrants or rounding up immigrants, Trump talking about he's going to take away any restrictions on police to, to give them full qualified immunity to do whatever they want. It's seeming to become like the fascist state of America. How do you maintain hope? How do you maintain a sense of direction, of calibration that I'm going to just keep moving a step forward, especially when so many people are struggling economically and they're not sure of what the next few months are going to hold?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me assure everybody that it is not the end. As you go through all 900 pages of Project 2025 and understand what Trump can do in 4 years and what he can't, the one and most important thing, and it's the first step, is he cannot break down our electoral system in 4 years. That is literally impossible. Can he do this horrifying mass deportation? Absolutely. Can he screw up our economy by putting a tariff on everything and it creating a deficit and also creating inflation and deflation probably simultaneously? He can do all that. But what he can't do is he can't break down the electoral system. It would be impossible in just 4 years. It would take 10, 15 years to do that. So get ready, folks. And guess what? Like, take your time to heal. If you need more time to heal, like usually I need a day to a week. And so I'm ready. Like I'm bouncing back and I'm mad. So
Yes.
use your anger in a positive way and talk to our leaders and say, look, stop licking your wounds and get to work. Roll up your sleeves and get to work and find out how we can be better for working families, period. And that's all you should be focusing on in a very laser way, because the preponderance of voters are Trump, like 80% of them could sway any which way. They're whipsaws. So take advantage of that, understand what they want and need, and move forward. The electorate is everything. Stop worrying about Susie and Janie and Tommy and just worry about working families.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I mean, that's was one of the points I made, that if you think we lost because the majority of the country is racist, you're missing the point of what we can actually change. Focusing on working families has never been a losing. It's always been a
But
winning
it's
argument.
important to note, right? Like, we are not a post-racial country, right? Qasim, we are we still have racists and misogynists. And that played a role. Let's be very clear, because it would be
100%.
wrong to say, but you are right. Like, let's fix the things we can right now, and hopefully along the way, those people learn to stop being racist and misogynist. But attack the things we can control.
You nailed it. You nailed it. And that's the full argument, that yes, that racism absolutely played a role, and we need to go beyond and recognize the other things that we can control. We're not going to snap our fingers and racism, but we can end poverty, and that's the reality we must take. Marie, thank you for being with us today. Before you go, can you just give a shout out one more time on how folks can follow you and find you and support your work?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me today so much. And it was so good to interact with everybody today. If you'd like to hear from me or chat with me, I'm on Substack at Marie Newman Studio, but you can just literally throw Marie Newman into the search panel and it'll find me. So no worries. At Marie Newman Studio. And I'm New Marie Newman or Marie Newman on all of my other platforms, including Blue Sky. So looking forward to seeing all of you out there, and I can't wait to chat with you.
Marie, thanks for joining us again.
Okay, take care, guys.
That is Marie Newman, former congresswoman from Illinois, just doing amazing work. Please go and support her and subscribe to her and give her all your emphasis, because this is the kind of leadership we need. When we come back, I want to close out talking about kind of where we're going to go from here, particularly on how Joe Biden can use these final 2 months to slow MAGA fascism in America. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View, channel 126. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View, channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. That was former Congresswoman Marie Newman. I adore her. She's a brilliant thought leader in the space, and I encourage you all to subscribe to her work. Send her your resources and be engaged. Follow her at Marie Newman or New Marie Newman across platforms, including on Blue Sky. As you close out the show, I want to talk about these last 2 months of Joe Biden's presidency and how, even though he's a lame duck president, he can still help slow down the advance of MAGA fascism and actually save American lives. Question is he going to have the courage to act? We just got news that the Republicans will retain the House majority, meaning that for the second time in a decade, Republicans will have a trifecta government under Donald Trump. Thank you, Democratic leadership. Make no mistake, this will be devastating for human and civil rights over the next 2 years and beyond. And right now, with fascism on the rise and the lives and freedoms of millions at risk, it is simply not enough for Democrats to say, we're going to stand up and be strong. No, we need to fight with actual policy. And that's what President Biden needs to do. Every single tool at his disposal these last 2 months should be used to slow down Trump's MAGA agenda. Every single one. What are these tools? And perhaps more importantly, what is stopping Biden from taking that action? Let's talk about this. Biden calls Trump a fascist. If he truly believes that, then rather than simply invite Trump to the White House for a casual meet and greet, he needs to act with urgency to build protections for people. And I'm going to give you 5 examples of things that he can do right now to protect us, if he's willing to fight. 1, protect abortion access nationwide. As I've written before, we have a national crisis of rape and abortion here in the United States. And when I call it a crisis of abortion, I mean a crisis of denial of abortion access. And it's having devastating effects on women's health, on their safety, on their autonomy. President Biden could issue an executive order protecting abortion access nationally, and in doing so, save lives by ensuring women have access, even in red states. And while such an order will be in place temporarily, even a short-term reprieve means more women would be able to access the essential care they need to live. And again, if your response is, won't Trump just repeal this on day one? Yes, and I'll address that in just a minute because that's a valid point. But for now, just bear with me and let's agree that even affording women another 2 months of healthcare access is going to be life-saving. 2, Biden should issue an executive order and cancel all student debt, all $1.7 trillion. He has the authority to do this through the Department of Education. It's why he's already used that authority to cancel $175 billion in student debt. He's already done it. Now he has the opportunity to cancel that all, just as he promised when he ran for president in 2020. I wrote an op-ed for NBC documenting that canceling student debt will increase the GDP, it'll strengthen the economy, it'll create up to 1.5 million new jobs, it'll increase home buying, it'll increase childbirth. People are freaking out about people aren't having kids anymore because they can't afford it. Get rid of that debt and people will have children. It's not complicated. It'll help level the playing field in the current racial and economic injustice Black and Latino student space. It'll decrease depression and suicide rates. Biden can provide all these benefits literally with a swipe of a pen. Indeed, as the Debt Collective, a nonprofit focused on getting rid of student debt, points out that people on the right don't seem to understand that this isn't actually quite complicated. It's actually very simple. Student debt cancellation doesn't require any money be drawn from the Treasury. Your taxes aren't going up because of student debt relief. It's just not true. The money is already gone, out the door. When people are forced to borrow from the government, the money is dispersed at that point in time. Canceling debt that has existed for 10, 20, or 50 years is not requiring money to be paid back. It's not taking money out of your pocket. It's just canceling money that was never going to be repaid anyway. It's already off the books. And again, people are going to argue Trump will repeal this on day one. And my answer is let him. Let him try. Because if he does, he's going to have to explain to 40 million Americans shackled by $1.7 trillion in debt, in exploitative debt, that I am giving you this debt back while I'm cutting 4 or 5 trillion in taxes for the wealthiest Americans. I'm canceling 4 trillion in taxes for them, but burdening you with 2 trillion in debt. Let him make that argument to 40 million Americans and see how it works out for him. 3, end all arms Netanyahu. Biden must end the supply of arms to Israel to bomb Gaza. Not only does Netanyahu's administration violate U.S. and international law, but Biden's own State Department has confirmed this. You know, last month, they gave Netanyahu 30 days to stop bombing Gaza and said, if you don't stop, we're going to stop giving you arms. Well, those 30 days passed, and they said, okay, fine, we're going to keep giving you arms. It's ridiculous. The election is behind us. There's no political excuse, not even a political excuse. Stop funding genocide, Mr. President. Uphold constitutional and international human rights law. Do it because it's right. Do it because our government must stop funding war crimes against Palestinians. Do it because the American people expect moral leadership, not complicit silence. And I swear to God, if the people on the left who are silent at Biden doing this right now suddenly wake up when Trump does the exact same thing, I'm going to lose my mind. We cannot be hypocritical, guys. We have to be consistent. Speak up, for God's sake. Number 4, prepare civil service and protect them and prevent military deployments on civilians. I can't believe I'm having to say this, but President Biden can also take steps to secure the civil service and civilians from political interference by updating and strengthening the Posse Comitatus Act, the PCA. Probably never heard of this bill before, this piece of legislation, because it hasn't been relevant in more than 150 years beyond combating drug trafficking. But sadly, it will be critical to prevent Trumpian fascism from expanding. The Department of Justice explains this bill really well. It says the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, which removed the military from regular civilian law enforcement, was enacted in response to the abuses resulting from the extensive use of the army in civil law enforcement during the Civil War and Reconstruction. So this bill basically says that you can't use the US military to attack US civilians. They needed a bill for that. Given how much Trump is threatening to deploy the military to quell, civil protest or peaceful protest, it's critical that Biden strengthen that bill to make sure that Trump cannot do that. He cannot make the military his personal fighting force. 5, commute the death penalty for federal prisoners. There are 2,500 people on federal death row right now, disproportionately Black. When Trump was last in office, he lifted the moratorium on executions, and now that he's returning, there's no doubt that the so-called pro-life president will execute as many people as possible. As I've written before, as I've said before, we have to abolish the death penalty in the United States because it's unjust, it executes innocent people, it's racially disproportionate, it's extremely costly and wasteful, and it does nothing to make our communities actually safer. President Biden could commute all those sentences to life in prison, which cannot be reversed, by the way. He could commute the executions of every person, relegate them to life in prison. This act alone would not only save us tax dollars, if that's all you care about, but it would prevent the further exploitations of people's lives, and it will prevent the execution of innocent people, which statistically speaking, at least 11% of people on death row are innocent. 11%, think about that. Of the 2,500, that means about 300 of them are innocent. That's insane. And again, it's literally the swipe of a pen away. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. I don't mean Donald Trump. People are going to say, well, these are executive orders. They can be overturned by the next administration. And yes, that's true. But I want you to think about 3 things first. 1, temporary is not the same as ineffective. A temporary executive order is not an ineffective executive order. These actions would provide critical breathing room and relief and protections for millions of Americans over the next 2 months, while laying down a strong marker against Trump's agenda. Protecting human rights, even temporarily, is a good thing, actually. And in some cases, it'll be permanent, like the commuting of the death row prisoners. That will be a permanent protection. Canceling student debt can be a permanent protection. The second point, we've already seen the power of what happens when you delay fascism. People end up winning. For example, after Trump enacted his bigoted Muslim ban in 2017, in January 2017, the people fought back with legal challenges. And it wasn't until June of 2018 that the Supreme Court finally allowed the Muslim ban to become law. But what happened then? It allowed us to flip the House, and the following year, we passed the No Ban Act, which banned faith-based discrimination. So delaying fascism actually helped prevent fascism from taking hold. And finally, on abortion, this executive order would force a judicial conundrum because it will force Republicans to go to sue and say, hey, hold on a second, this is a states' rights issue, and Supreme Court will be forced to again confirm that abortion is a states' rights issue as held in Dobbs. Ridiculous ruling, but nonetheless. So then when Republicans try to enact a national ban, which they've already promised to, Democrats can take a page right out of the right-wing playbook, go to a progressive district court, and seek a ruling that bans a national ban, because it says, well, the Supreme Court already said it's a state's issue, so you can't make a national ban. You guys see that point? I mean, it's brilliant. And it would allow us to ensure we're at least continuing to protect abortion access in left-leaning states until we can get to a point where we got a Democrat back in office and protect it on a nationwide scale as well. The bottom line is none of this is happening because of one person and one person only, and that's Joe Biden. We need fighters in the Democratic Party who understand that rhetoric is not enough. We need actual policy. Joe Biden is the only one stopping Joe Biden. And this is not the time for hesitation. It is the time for decisive, bold action that shows the American people that their president will fight for them. He's got nothing to lose. He's done. His career is done. The American people have everything to lose if he doesn't act. I mean, just imagine the possibilities if Biden were to go all in defending our rights. Imagine him standing up to a second Trump term by passing these executive orders and forcing Republicans to be on the defensive for once. How awesome would that be? Every bit of progress counts, and slowing down Trump's fascism is every bit worth it. Biden needs to act. It's long past time for him to do so, for the present, for the future, for every American counting on a government by, of, and for the people. We need him to fight for our freedom and dignity. And while sadly, I'm not confident he will, I would love to be proven wrong. I'm hopeful he has the courage to do this because the American people really need him to do so. All right, my friends, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow me on social media at Qasim Rashid across all platforms. If you're listening on Substack, hit that subscribe button because I need your support. I welcome your support to join this movement. I'm grateful for your trust, for your compassion, for your justice. We got a great show lined up for next week as well. Be sure to tune in same time, same place on Sirius XM at 10 a.m. Eastern on channel 126. And likewise, hit subscribe to get it automatically in your inbox the following day. My friends, be fierce, lead with compassion and justice, and continue speaking truth to power. Till next week, peace.